Imagine global economics as a horse race. If you had to place your bets on the winning horse, who would you put your money on? Most people might bet on the big bad thoroughbred that is America. After all, that is the safe bet. Well, you might be shocked to see the underdog coming up from the rear and clinching victory. That underdog would be India. With Asia steadily galloping towards the front in the race for global economic domination, all eyes are on India as the country becomes the fastest emerging economy in the world. With a predicted GDP growth rate of 6.8 in the 2003 to 2004 fiscal year, it is said that India will soon knock Germany off its spot as the fourth largest economy. All good news for India, right? Well, some skeptics think that this is all just smoke and mirrors. In fact, some economists say that the Indian economy is actually in big trouble. But what's the truth? Could India become the next global superpower? The answer to that question depends on a couple of factors. The first being India's massive population. It is estimated that India has surpassed China as the most populous country in the world. The bigger a country's population, the bigger its workforce. This is especially true for a country that has such a young population. More than 65% of India's population is under the age of 35. That is a lot of young bodies and minds that should be ready and able to drive the Indian economy straight to the top. At least, that is what's supposed to be happening. And that is what would be happening if there were actually any jobs for all these people to step into. Currently, India's unemployment rate sits at 8.1%, and that figure is slowly ticking upwards. The issue is, India has yet to figure out how to step into an industry that will really secure its economic growth: manufacturing. At present, almost half of the workforce is employed in the agriculture sector, a sector that is responsible for only 15% of India's GDP. India should be taking a leaf out of China's book and bolstering its manufacturing output. Manufacturing is where India can really stand to make the big bucks and where it can create millions of jobs for its workforce. At present, India has only managed to secure a measly 2% of the global share of manufacturing exports. The manufacturing sector only accounts for 17% of India's GDP. Pretty low when compared with China. In China, the manufacturing sector accounts for 27% of its GDP. All things considered, one might say that India is not making use of their workforce in the most efficient and potentially lucrative way. However, this is not because of a lack of trying on India's part. The Indian government has led a massive campaign which aims to make the world consider India as an alternative manufacturing hub. And this has managed to yield some success for the Southeast Asian nation. In recent times, India has had some big manufacturing wins. One of the biggest wins being the announcement that Apple will now start moving a massive amount of the manufacturing of the iPhone to India. In fact, the tech giant aims to have moved almost 50% of its iPhone production from China to India by 2027. This seems to be the big push that the Indian manufacturing sector needs to start clawing back some of the global share in manufacturing exports from China's hands. And there might be more bad news for China. It is speculated that more and more producers are moving their manufacturing out of China, and India is waiting with open arms, ready to accept any of China's former business. However, economists have come out to say that though India might benefit from the move out of China, Vietnam and other Southeast Asian countries stand to benefit more. And where US producers are considered, production may very well move from China to places a little closer to home, like Mexico and Central America. India will have to be quick to iron out some issues that are keeping foreign businesses away if they can really become the factory of the world. For one, a lack of skilled labor and technological innovation has led to some quality control issues. A recent Financial Times report has alleged that the iPhone production in India has already been riddled with faults and quality issues. Not a great start to this lucrative partnership. The India manufacturing sector also struggles with too much red tape and not enough infrastructure, which has led to producers looking elsewhere to have their manufacturing needs met. Perhaps what does work in India's favor in their bid to be the new manufacturing hub is that solid workforce we talked about earlier. However, there is one big flaw. See, when James Brown said, "This is a man's world, but it would be nothing without a woman or a girl," India must not have been listening. A large number of their women, who would be great contributors to their workforce, are being excluded. It is well known that a country's economy benefits from having more women in the workforce. In fact, the IMF estimates that if as many Indian women worked as Indian men, then India would be a whopping 27% wealthier. However, according to the Center for Monitoring the Indian Economy, in 2022, only 10% of working-age women were employed or job searching. That works out to about 39 million women, which is a stark contrast to the 361 million men that are employed or job searching in India. So, why are Indian women not a part of the workforce? The reasons are varied, but the reason most often cited is societal pressure. It is the age-old tale of women being expected to be homemakers, while the men are expected to be the breadwinners. Now, it is not for anyone to decide whether this traditional view is universally right or wrong, but it is certainly having an effect on India's wallet. It might be in Indian policymakers' best interests to figure out how to bring more women out of the home and into the factories and offices. Analysts who believe in the idea of India as the next global superpower also point to the country's recovery after COVID as a reason to believe in this idea. The last 3 years have seemed like a surreal blur of time, almost as if we are all living in a Black Mirror episode. And then, as if a global pandemic wasn't bad enough, Ukraine and Russia have plunged into a full-out war with no end in sight. All of this has had major implications on economies all over the world, and the Indian economy is no different. However, India came out of the pandemic a lot better off than many people expected. Foreign direct investment, or FDI, flows took a nosedive all over the world during the pandemic as the world bore witness to a hefty 35% drop. India, however, seemed to be immune to this global trend as FDI inflows into India actually spiked during this time. FDI flows are investments that a person or entity makes into a business located in another country. These investments help boost a country's economy and can help create jobs and increase infrastructure. India enjoyed an impressive 27% increase in FDI inflows in 2020. This was largely due to foreign investors throwing big money at the information communication technology sector. In fact, Mr. Bezos himself, or rather his massive company Amazon, invested $2.8 billion USD in India's ICT infrastructure. That is no chump change. Despite this amazing period of foreign investment, India's FDI inflows have started to slow down. In fact, they are now in a steep decline, having dropped 16% between 2022 and 2023. To be fair, this decrease in FDI flows reflects the global trend. Times are uncertain, and investors are more reluctant to let go of their bucket loads of cash. Even though decreased FDI flows is a global trend, one has to wonder why India wasn't able to ride the high of their 2020 gains a little bit longer. This is the first time in a decade that India's FDI flows have taken a decline. Has the world started to lose hope in the fantasy of an India that is charging to economic glory? Or is this dip just a reflection of the times that will be righted in due time? According to D.K. Joshi, a chief economist at Chrysler, the slowdown in FDI has been a global trend in 2022, so this doesn't come as a surprise. But India, as the fastest growing economy in G20, is structurally well positioned to attract healthy FDI flows over the medium term. So, we still have to answer the billion-dollar question. Is India really set to become the next global superpower, or is this all just a pipe dream? Well, only time will tell. I, for one, will be waiting with bated breath to see if India will finally make it into the winner's circle. After all, everyone loves an underdog.